Welcome, everyone. I am beyond excited this week to share with you my conversation that I had with the multi-passionate Cara Alwill Leyba. She is a best-selling author, certified master life coach, professional speaker, hostess of the very successful Style Your Mind podcast. She's also a fashionista entrepreneur with her own brand of vintage clothing and jewelry, and many other things that she's involved in. She's fun to follow on Instagram. Her 8 previous books are also amazing, and listening to her podcast is always a pleasure. I had a great conversation with her. We talked about everything from what it's been like for her these past few days post-book launch. We talked about her podcast, Style Your Mind. We talked about the importance of having a consistent core branding message, and she also shared with me a super cute analogy of her books in regards to some celebrities that I'm sure you've heard of. So as always, I hope you enjoy this podcast. I really appreciate it if you share it with a friend or family member. And thanks for listening. Welcome, Cara.
Hi, Melinda. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
I am so excited to have you on my podcast. Thank you so much. I am really looking forward to diving into your book and chatting. I have a bunch of questions I'm dying to ask you. You just released your 9th book, Girl on Fire, on Monday. How does it feel? Like, wow.
It feels so good. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to have it out there. Like I was saying to you earlier, like creating a book is such a labor of love, and it's such a lonely process. And I feel like a lot of people don't get that until they actually write a book themselves, because the readers see the other side of it. They see, the author doing book signings and interacting with their readers online and, in events. But the whole process of writing is so lonely and so isolating. So now that I'm on the other side of it, it feels so good to actually be able to talk about it with people, because you're just so in your head for so long, and it's such a weird feeling. So it feels really, really good to have it out there and be getting all the positive feedback and seeing it doing so well. I'm just so, so grateful.
Yeah, well, I loved it. I was super lucky that you forwarded me a copy in advance so I could read it prior to us talking today. So I was a little spoiled, I must say. And I loved everything from the manifestos in the beginning. 2 of them I just really resonated with so much. And one was about failure is a possibility, because I feel like I've always tried things and been, game for trying things, but they don't always work out. And then the other one I just love so much is about, she doesn't play the game.
Yes.
So, yeah. So I just, really appreciate those. And like I said, this is your 9th book. How did the writing process come about? How did you feel so inspired still? I mean, you keep sharing all this really amazing, relatable content. So how does that?
Yeah. Well, my story goes back to 2012 was when I first put out my first book. And I started as a rejected self-published author, which I always say I'm very proud to be, because that's my story. And it's been what has inspired me through the years. I first wanted to write a book way back, if we really want to go back to 2008 when I started my blog. That was when I first started dreaming about actually writing a book. And I really always was a writer. Even through my childhood, I would always write short stories, and I, did creative writing. But like most people, I was told that writers don't make money and authors aren't successful unless you're Stephen King or something, like a major author. But I was just determined to change that narrative and to really prove that I could do this. And whether or not I was going to be a full-time author, I had no idea. But at the time, I said, I'm going to try this. And I was, working full-time, and I was kind of side hustling and building my business and my brand. And I self-published my first book after being rejected by 19 publishers. And the book did well, but I had a tiny little audience at the time, so it did as well as it could. And throughout the years, I just continued to write. I just had so much that I wanted to say. I was learning so much in my own journey and, going through my own personal kind of transformation and sharing that on my blog and with my readers. And always connecting with people. I think that's been like the thing that has always inspired me, is just staying connected. I'm also a professional life coach, so I have that relationship with my clients, and I see kind of, inside the mind of, a woman, like what is she interested in? What is she challenged by? What does she want to learn? And that's always been like my driving force behind everything that I write. It's always to answer a question, to help solve a problem. So this book came about after quite a long journey with publishing and writing my books. After I self-published my fourth book, which was a book called Girl Code, that book did so well that I was approached by Penguin Random House. So like the publishers that rejected me were now knocking on my door. And I was in a very interesting position because it was like, okay, well, what am I going to do here? Like, I'm doing so well on my own. Do I even need these people anymore? And there was just like a part of me that felt like I had to say yes and follow through on that dream and just explore it. And I think, quite honestly, there was still a part of me that needed to be chosen. I needed those gatekeepers to choose me and accept me still. I was still in that space, that headspace. And I signed a book deal, and they bought the rights to Girl Code. And then I did another book with them called Like She Owns the Place. And honestly, Melinda, that whole experience was just so like disheartening to me. It was just not what I thought it would be. My good friend Noah always says, like, what happens when your dreams come true and you don't recognize them? And I think a lot of us like listening can relate to that. Like, has there ever been something you wanted so bad to happen, and then it happened and you're like, oh, that's it? Like, I don't feel the way I thought I would feel. And that's exactly what happened to me. So I really turned inward after that experience, and I thought a lot about the legacy that I want to leave behind, and the brand that I'm building, and the women that I'm empowering. And it's like, what message is next? What do I really want to talk about? And that's what Girl on Fire is about. It's really about choosing yourself and realizing that you don't need those gatekeepers to choose you. You don't need that external validation. You can do whatever you want to do. And like, I feel like I'm living proof of that, like just writing my own books, publishing my own books, starting my own podcast, creating my own events, and not waiting for someone to pick me. So the book really was inspired by all of those experiences. And I really hope that it just inspires women to just move and just to get into action, and to, stop following like these crazy, like fake rules we have in our society, like you need to do this and then you need to do that. Like, I really just want to ask women like a question, like, who would you be and what would you create if you had nothing holding you back?
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things I've always really admired about you is you're multi-passionate between your vintage clothing collection and the jewelry, and then your healthy eating. So I wish I was brutally honest. I haven't gotten to all that yet, but just being multi-passionate, because I do think there's so many people out there that are just trying to put everyone in a box. So it is nice and refreshing, to be quite frank, that you don't do that. So
yeah, I see so many like these, self-proclaimed experts and coaches and all these people who I think are well-meaning, but I think they're kind of doing women a disservice, and men too. I mean, anyone really who's putting themselves out there by saying, you have to pick this niche and stay with it, and you have to be super specific about your message and your audience. And I don't really think that's true. I think that you need to have a strong personal brand. I think that you need to have a strong mission statement and a desire of like what you want to accomplish in the world, but it doesn't have to just speak to one person. I think that you can speak to many different people and many different journeys as long as your messaging is consistent and as long as what you're doing is consistent. So like even for me, whether I'm writing a book or talking about a delicious plant-based recipe or selling a beautiful vintage sequin jacket, it all comes down to the same thing. It all comes down to me wanting to help women live better and help women feel good in their own skin. It's always the same core message. I'm just doing it in different ways that interest me because I've been doing this 11 years. So, being an entrepreneur, I think you have to keep it interesting and you have to allow yourself to explore all of those passions and those obsessions and those curiosities. Otherwise, you're going to get bored. Your audience is going to get bored. And what's the point? I think we all have so much more to offer than we allow ourselves to put out there.
Yeah, no, that's so right. I love that. That take home right there is your core message is consistent. So that's very cool. So tell me too, from like a business and sales perspective, when you went into planning this launch, like what are some of the steps you took? What are some of the practices that you put into place? whether it's, tactical or mindset. I'd love to hear some of your strategies.
Yeah. So I really believe in building a hype around whatever it is that you're doing and like really showing how excited you are and sharing all of that and getting your audience invested from the early stages of whatever it is that you're doing. So a lot of people will wait until something's completed before they ever start talking about it. And I'm the total opposite. And I have found my approach to be successful in whatever it is that I'm doing. I've just seen the way people respond to it. I mean, even going all the way back to 2012, when I first self-published my first book, I took my audience through the entire process from like picking out the cover to sneak peeking the first chapter. And they love that. People want to feel like they're part of something. So when I knew I was going to, start talking about Girl on Fire, I knew that I wanted to take them on that same journey. So I created a private Facebook group, which is my book club, and it's like a place for all of my readers to hang out. It's kind of like a reader's lounge, and they share things in there, and I do Facebook lives and Q&As, and I have like big plans for that space. And that really essentially has become like my little street team. Like everybody in there is excited about the book and they're posting about it, and they're also getting something in return. They're getting time with me. They're getting to pick my brain. They're getting to have a space to vibe and connect with other people. So that was one major thing that I did. I think also just, making sure that I am taught like almost oversharing. I think when people share or launch anything, the biggest thing that I hear, at least from my clients, is that I feel like I'm talking about it too much, or I don't want to annoy people with my offer. I don't want to be too much about this. And it's like, no, you have to realize if you post something 10 times, chances are like one of your followers sees that one time, because of the algorithm, because of their busy schedule, because maybe they didn't log on to Instagram for the weekend. So I'm just making sure that I'm like talking about this book constantly in different ways, of course. I'm not just shouting like buy the book everywhere, but I'm sharing little excerpts. I'm sharing, behind the scenes, like celebrating the launch with my friends. I posted a picture the other day. We were out for bubbly, like the night of the launch, like anything related to this launch and Girl on Fire. Like I'm just honestly like bringing people into the mix, and I'm making sure that I'm providing value, like I said, as opposed to just like, hey, buy the book. I'm kind of like telling you why I think you should buy the book, why I think it's going to benefit you. I'm releasing podcasts with sneak peeks. I shared like around the end of the summer, I think it was the summer or maybe it was even September, I shared a little sneak peek of the first chapter, and I read the manifesto, which is in the beginning of the book. It really sets the tone. I gave a free, printable to my book club so that they could print it out and hang it up on their vision board. So really just being of service to your audience, I think, is the best way to launch anything from, a strategy standpoint. Just reminding yourself that like, hey, I'm here to deliver. I'm here to give people what they need and what they want. And I'm not here to just like, shove a message down somebody's throats. I'm here to like have a conversation about it and make people feel like they're getting something that they might not be getting elsewhere.
That's amazing. And I can raise my hand and say I struggle with feeling oversharing. And I know my husband has too. So that is awesome advice. Thank you.
Yeah.
One of the other things I wanted to definitely talk about too, and you parlayed a little bit into that, is your podcast, Style Your Mind. And in your book, you had said you have over 6 million unique downloads, which is amazing. And that's kind of how I originally found you. Was first I saw your book when I was in the airport, and I loved the cover with the pink hair. And then I started reading the book jacket and saw you had a podcast. And since I love podcasts so much, that's how I ended up originally finding you. I found you at the airport, let's say. Right?
I love it.
So how, can you maybe share some advice on your podcast and how you build your audience, and any tips for anyone who's either starting a new podcast or maybe has a new podcast and they're looking to grow and improve?
Yeah. So many tips. I mean, it really depends on, I think from a content perspective, I approach my podcast as like an audio blog. And I think that I'm one of the few people that do that. I see a lot of podcasters out there who just have purely like an interview-based podcast, which is fine too. But for me, I wanted it to be more of like a place for me to express myself and share content with my audience beyond the blog. Because I noticed that people were moving away from reading blogs and people were moving more into podcasting, which makes so much sense because I love a podcast too, right? We can listen to it when we're driving, when we're working out, when we're taking a walk around our neighborhood. So I thought to myself, like, how can I use this podcast as a space where I can give people what they want from me, which is content and tips and actionable advice in a way that is progressive, in a way that is, convenient to them, in a way that's going to make sense, that's going to really make it, easy to digest. So I knew that I wanted to do it that way, and I would feature guests, but only when they really inspired me. So like everyone that comes to my podcast, I've invited them on. I don't get pitched. I mean, I do get pitched, but I don't accept pitches from like random publicists. I get a lot of that. That's never been my goal. It's never been to be like a promotional vehicle for me. It's just meant to be a place where I can talk to really cool people if I decide to bring them on. But I wanted to keep my podcast, like I said, informative. I wanted to give people action items at the end of every episode. I want to keep the episode short. My podcasts are like 20, 25 minutes, and just like my books, they're like 200 pages or less. Because that's the feedback that I've gotten from people. They're like, everybody's busy. So it's a privilege to be in someone's ear. It's a privilege for someone to read my book and pick it up or listen to an episode. So I try to just be really mindful of my audience and make sure that I'm giving them something that they're going to appreciate and something that's really going to work for them.
No, that's awesome. Do you have, circling back on how you write your books and the podcasts, and that you do have 9 books, do you have a favorite book? I hate to ask this, but
no, I love that question. Okay. I used to, right? This is how I have this like running joke with everyone. I'm like, okay, my books are like the Kardashian sisters. And for the longest time, Girl Code was like Kim because she got all the attention. I was like, she was the star. But I have to be honest with you, Girl on Fire is my new favorite. She's like stepped it up. She's like the Kylie. She's like coming in hot and taking over.
So great.
So I love this book the most. And I honestly, like, I think the reason is, number one, it's the content, right? Like, I feel like I have evolved so much and I have so much more to offer people now at this point in my journey. I've been an entrepreneur now, like on my own, away from corporate America since 2014. So that's like, I've got some years under my belt now, as opposed to Girl Code, for example, when I wrote just a year out of the gate. I've just experienced so much in life. And I think I've been able to experience so much through my clients and through serving women and like speaking to like literally millions of women through the podcast and connecting with people online. So Girl on Fire is definitely my favorite book. And I think also the fact that I did this on my own, I kind of came full circle after having a publisher. I came back to self-publishing. I just feel like it is this like, I don't know, this manifesto for like rebel girls everywhere, women who just want to be independent and do it anyway and go against the grain. So I'm just like beyond excited for it.
Yeah, that's so awesome. What is on your list still that you want to accomplish? Like any future goals you're thinking about?
Oh my gosh, so many. So right now I am looking to, first and foremost, get Girl on Fire translated in as many languages as possible. So I'm going to set the intention. If anyone's listening, send me an email. I want to find an amazing literary agent who can handle the foreign rights for this book, because that is one thing that is a little trickier on your own as an indie author. I do get approached by a lot of foreign publishers, but I definitely want to make sure that this book is in as many languages as possible in front of as many women as possible. So Girl Code has been translated into 7 languages now. I think I've told you this, I've talked about this on my show. I even found an underground unauthorized copy in Iran floating around. I had all these women from Iran sending me DMs on Instagram telling me that like somebody translated the book and put it in a library, and all of these women are finding the message, which to me, it's like, if there's ever a culture that needs women's empowerment, it's that culture. It's very difficult for women there. And I've heard this from them. They've told me like, your book has, completely inspired me to like chase my dreams when I've been told that I shouldn't and I couldn't. So getting Girl on Fire in front of as many cultures as possible, really breaking as many barriers as possible. That's the big goal. And I really just want to be out there in front of people. I love traveling. I love being like, I think there's nothing like the human touch. So trying to get at as many events as I can, like especially in 2020, that's a major goal for me. Speaking at conferences, women's empowerment summits, doing local meetups, book signings, wherever I'm available to. I think for me, that's for sure going to be like the first thing that I try to focus on for the new year.
Yeah, that's awesome. I saw that you sent an email blast out maybe yesterday or the day before about doing a book signing in Manhattan, in New York. I think it might be in a borough, but December 5th at the Lip.
Yes.
That's awesome. I wish I could come. Can you come to South Florida again?
Yes, I will definitely be in South Florida again. I have a lot of readers down in Miami, so I'll for sure be down there. But yeah, I'm going to be at the Lip Bar on December 5th. And if you guys don't know what the Lip Bar is, I go listen to the last episode of Style Your Mind because I interviewed Noelle Santos, who created it. But just to make a long story short, Noelle lives in the Bronx. It's a borough of 1.5 million people with 10 colleges. And about 4 or 5 years ago, she saw a petition on Facebook signed for encouraging people to sign it to get a bookstore built in the Bronx after the last one had closed. So in a borough of 1.5 million people in New York City, there was no bookstore. And Noelle signed the petition, and like 2 minutes later, she was like, no, this is not enough. I have to get out there. I have to make this happen myself. I'm not going to wait for the politics to align. I'm not going to wait for some adult to come in and some politician to come in and make it happen. I'm doing it myself. And she crowdfunded the support to get the Lip Bar made. And she built the thing from the ground up herself. And it's a beautiful store. It's a huge bookstore. There's a wine bar in the back. She does events there. So I'm like thrilled to support her. I actually wrote about her in Girl on Fire. And like I said, I had her on the podcast because to me, she's a perfect example of asking yourself, like, why not me? Like, why am I going to wait for someone else to create what I want to see in my community? Why don't I just go out there and do it? And it takes a really strong woman to be able to do that. And she did. So I'm like thrilled for her, proud of her, and support her at every chance I get. So I'll be signing books there and doing a panel with a couple of other girls who are also entrepreneurs in that community. And we're just so excited to pour into everyone and share. So if you guys want to come to that, check it out.
That is so cool. That's so cool. And just for my audience, if you go back to, I think, episode 4, I actually talk about how I met Cara in Miami at her ladies' brunch. And similar, it's funny, I never knew that was your strategy, Cara, for doing podcast interviews, but it's funny because it's aligned with mine. I, so far to date, have only done podcast interviews with someone I have met and worked with. So that's been mine too. So I love podcasts that are just interviews, but sometimes I feel like, the people don't even know each other. So
yeah,
I really tried to make it where, I've met the person or I worked with them, and, I'm sure as time goes on, that might evolve and change a little bit, but at this point in time, it's only been people that I've met and worked with. So that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, it's a different dynamic. And I'm sure there are people that I'll have on my show eventually who maybe I haven't personally talked to before, but at the very least, it's somebody that I really want to speak to. It's not just to fill airtime. It's somebody that I'm out there soliciting, being like, hey, please come on. I really want to pick your brain and ask you these questions and share you with my tribe. So I think it's a good strategy to have. I think people can tell the difference too when the host is excited about who they're talking to.
Mm-hmm. I agree. How do you protect, you were so busy with this launch and you're busy in general. I'm amazed at the amount of different projects that you are doing on a regular basis. How do you protect your energy? What are some rituals that you always make sure you do to take care of yourself and just have some me time?
That's a really good question. Sleep is huge to me. If I am not getting between 8 and 10 hours of sleep a night, I'm just good for nothing. So that's a big thing. I have no shame in my game. I'm in bed sometimes 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. And I get up early naturally in the morning. So I love to sleep. And I really try to ask myself every day, what do I need most today? And I get really honest about that answer. And it looks different every day. Some days I need to go and take a soul cycle class. Some days I need to spend time off social media and not log into Instagram or Facebook and just give myself a chance to breathe. Some days I need to go have a 4-hour lunch with my mom and drink 3 or 4 glasses of wine and totally disconnect from the world and just be social and, be with my family and just talk about other stuff. It really depends. Some days I'm in the work and my head is down and I'm working for 14 hours. So being honest with myself and asking myself what would feel best that day in that moment And I realized that it's different for everyone. Everyone has different schedules. I've worked really hard to give myself this kind of a life where I can have the freedom to do that. It's taken me years and years and years. But even if you just have a couple of minutes to yourself, maybe you're a busy mom and you've got a full-time job and you're side hustling, what can I do with these 15 minutes that I have at night that will make me feel amazing? And I think letting go of the guilt and feeling like, oh, I should be reading a book right now, or I should be working on my business. Sometimes you just want to sit in the bathtub and drink a cup of tea in peace. And that's enough, So being real with yourself and following through with action and giving yourself whatever it is that's going to feel good in the moment, I think is so important when it comes to protecting your energy.
Yeah, no, and that's so true. I actually had some big lessons with that myself this fall. I kind of worked myself into a tailspin, to be honest. And I had to really start to take a step back and a couple hours during the week, taking some time off to do something with my husband or a friend, or even by myself, go sit and read a book. It didn't kill me. My business didn't suffer. I lived. And, I just felt much better. I just felt more at ease and aligned with, what I wanted to really do. So, so I think that's great advice. And I think more and more people are starting to realize that from, clients and things that I've talked to. So
yeah, I think that like whole team no sleep and hustle culture is just really toxic. And it's not to say that you don't have to work really freaking hard to get to where you want to go. But I think working hard while also being patient is really important. And I can speak to that because like I said, I've been doing this for 11 years. So understanding that it's a long-term game and that if you want to be around for a while and create a sustainable business, you've got to be patient. It's not going to happen overnight. And working yourself to the bone is not going to make it come any quicker. It's just going to burn you out and make you feel like crap.
Yeah, no, totally. So speaking of something fun, because we'll probably wrap up here, and because I know you have a lot on your plate, and I really appreciate you taking time with me for this podcast. What do you do for fun? Like any fun date nights that you do with your husband? Any, just extra fun curricular activities, vacations, anything like that you want to share?
Yeah, well, I love food. I love to go out to eat. So that's like a big thing for us. And I'm plant-based. So I'm lucky that in New York City, we have a lot of vegan restaurants popping up that are really cool spaces. So I think in the past, when people would think of like a vegan restaurant, you're like, oh God, I can't. Like, what are they going to serve me? Like tofu? It's going to be like a little, boring kind of fast food joint. But New York is just like really, the vegan culture here in New York, plant-based culture is amazing. So we love going out to dinner. Having a cocktail, having a beautiful meal, being out. That's super fun. I have a dance club that I go to whenever I need a little boost. It's called Pyramid. I know that you've seen me talk about it, Melinda. Awesome. It's my favorite. If you're ever in New York, you have to come. It's all 80s music and it's like Disneyland for adults. It's just like pure escapism. Like, they blast all like good 80s music and it's fun and it's colorful and it's like the best time. So if I ever need a night off, I'm like, you can find me dancing in Pyramid for sure. And I love to see shows. I love music. That's like a huge part of my life. So maybe there's like a jazz concert somewhere, or like a lot of bars around here will just offer like free live music at night. So like that's something that I love. Like just go out for an hour, listen to some music, chill, kind of, take your mind off things. Like just fun for me. I think just, really like immersing myself in the arts and in music is just something I absolutely love to do. I love to go to Broadway shows, and I'm fortunate enough to live here and go see plays and be able to do that any night of the week, really, which I try to really take advantage of because I think you can forget wherever you live. I'm sure, you're down in South Florida. It's gorgeous where you are, but you probably sometimes you're like, oh, I can actually just go sit on the beach today. Like you don't realize when you're in it, what you have at your fingertips sometimes. So I try to just like take advantage of where I am and really just enjoy life.
Yeah, I know you're so lucky. When I lived in New York, it was a cornucopia of just really amazing activities. And it is funny because every place that you live, because I've lived in many different places, there's always positives and negatives. So you're right. You have to maximize the positives and remember, hey, let me take some time to appreciate this. Like when we go out to dinner, we always make a conscious effort for the most part to choose a place that's outside because we are like, oh, wow, we live here and we can be outside in February. So
yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's just about being self-aware, right? Like, and just being grateful, I think. And like you said, just taking advantage of whatever's around you in that moment and being like, I choose to be here. So I'm going to just fully enjoy this moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Was there anything else you want to share with the audience before we wrap up? And definitely tell us how for them to find you, buy your book, reach out to you.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Melinda, for having me on the show. This is amazing. Thank you for everyone for listening. I hope you got some good takeaways from this episode. And, if you want to check out Girl on Fire, it's available on Amazon. And my podcast is called Style Your Mind. You can find me there every week. And I'm on Instagram at The Champagne Diet.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I know I took tons of notes and tips. Selfishly, I got some of my own questions answered, which is fabulous. And I just really appreciate your time and appreciate all that you share with us. You're amazing. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.